If you could let us know when you flip the switch. Hear anything, so hopefully that's okay. All right. Welcome everyone to the regular scheduled board meeting on the 8th of March 2021 of the Akron Public Schools Board of Education. We're excited to be here today and look forward to a very fruitful and productive meeting today. We'll start off with our roll call. Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Here.
Mr. Bravo.
Here.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
And welcome to our student board member, Michaela Perriman from North High School.
North High School. Had to say it. Sorry, had to say it. Michaela, welcome.
All right.
That's
Welcome.
my student board member.
Welcome, Michaela Perriman. And actually, while we're talking about you, thank you for joining the board today. And if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we would greatly appreciate that. Ms. Perriman there, or I just can't hear anything. Are you on mute?
Okay. I'm here. No, I'm not. Okay. I to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you providing us with your Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to move to community and school reflections. And in fact, we're going to start with you, Ms. Perriman. You want to provide us with your reflections there. We are excited to have you here representing North High School. So we want to hear from you.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. My name is Michaela Perriman and I'm a senior at North High School. I'm currently been accepted into Kent State University and plan.
She left out on the best part. We're gonna wait to hopefully Miss Perriman can come back. Get kicked out. We thank everyone for their patience. As you know, sometimes we can't predict. Mrs. McKittrick had her hand up for community and school reflections. Don't get her back in the next 30 seconds. We'll go to you, and then the moment we get Ms. Perriman back, we will go student board member for their report. Let's see if we can get a few minutes. Okay, Mrs. McKittrick, if you want to give your reflection. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
It exited me out the meeting. So.
Go ahead. We'll go ahead with you. Just congratulations, just for being accepted to Kent State, by the way.
Thank you. Okay. As a senior, I'm excited to return back to school to participate in all the senior activities. Hopefully, we can have a prom because it's one of the activities I'm looking forward to the most. It's something that I always thought would be a part of my life before graduating high school. People I know are excited to and even preparing by looking for dresses and finding a date. Prom is a way to have a final goodbye before graduation. I heard that the governor has approved for schools to have prom, and I really hope that APS follows along and allows us to participate in prom. My younger sister and I are returning to in-person learning. My younger sister attends Sam Salem Elementary to see all of her friends and catch up. During the pandemic, both of us weren't as active as we used to be. Getting back to school will allow both her and I to be more active, and she can participate in her favorite class, which is gym. Like many seniors, I am employed part-time. I work at TJ Maxx in Cuyahoga Falls. I don't have my driver's license yet, but plan on getting it soon. Since I don't have my license, I have to catch the Metro bus to and from work. On the Metro, there are groups of 2 seats for 2 people, but with the pandemic, Metro is only allowing 1 person per seat. I know there are many students from schools all over Akron that use Metro as their reliable transportation to and from school. This may make it hard for some of the students that will need to take the bus to and from school because the capacity allowed on the buses has lowered. Has there been any discussion between APS and Metro services about how students will have transportation to get back and forth to school? If there are no plans with Metro, then I would like to recommend having an APS bus transport students that are not able to fit on the Metro buses because of the capacity limits. On behalf of the student board, we hope the process of moving from online to in-person will go smoothly, as well as having smooth continuation of online learning. We wish students, their families, and staff good health. And thank you.
Very much, Michaela, and I think that suggestion is one that definitely is one we should take a look at. Definitely sounds like something we should look at, and the pandemic has changed a lot, and transportation is one of those. So thank you again for your service. Congratulations on being a senior and everything that you have in your future. We're definitely appreciative of you and look forward to seeing some great things from you, Michaela.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we'll open it up for the rest of the board to do their community and school reflections. We'll start with Mrs. McKittrick. Line up in the chat.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks, Michaela, for your report. And as we enter our second week of Women's History Month, I want to say Happy International Women's Day to everyone. And thank you to all the women in the APS family for your contributions and for the continued positive impact you have on all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McKittrick. Is there anyone else? Good.
Hi, sorry, serious tech issues here in the Mansfield house. So can you guys hear me okay? All right, good. Thank you. So a couple things. It's been a busy couple of weeks. So just a shout out to Deb Folk, Bruce, Reverend Walker, and Dr. James for their presentation on CLCs to the Urban Network. To Ellen for the League of Women Voters anti-racism program that was presented. Just a fantastic job, Dr. McWilliams-Woods. Just really enjoyed that and thought it was incredibly informative. You really made us APS proud for sure. A big thanks to Tanya from the Love Akron group that meets every Monday morning early. They get up at and start praying for education at 7 a.m. And I know she's reached out to a couple of us. And she reached out this week and we had a good conversation. It's nice to know that someone has us in their best thoughts and indeed their prayers. And a big shout out for a program that I got to participate in with Miller South art teachers. They had an artist that we are presenting at the courthouse named Danny Ratcliffe, who's a Black artist. And at the very last minute, we put together a live program for them because the artist had planned to do that from his studio and it wasn't going to work. So we did it from the Bounce Innovation Hub, and we were able to go live with jazz musicians, and he was sketching them, and the students were live asking incredible questions. It was quite an experience in the possibilities of distance learning and what that could bring, because we were able to all be together even though we were spread across the city. So huge shout outs to Carolyn Hersich, to Pat Jolly, to Ms. Shantz and Ms. Rich for making that program possible for those 6th grade art students. It was really a great experience. And the exposure to a real live working artist in Akron was great for our students. So thanks for the time. Oh, and just real quick, shout out to my cluster. I got to do a quick drive around this morning and watch some drop off. And I did get to speak to Mrs. Dean. She was one of the people who was out at King. It was so great to see students walking to school and parents dropping off and smiles, even though it was just in their eyes because we couldn't see their mouth. So thanks so much.
Dr. Akbar, you were muted.
I said all of that muted. All right, my apologies. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mansfield, for that great reflection. And Ms. Autry, you're up next. And anyone else who has a reflection, please line up in the chat.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to briefly acknowledge and thank all the folks who took the time to participate in the focus groups and the surveys in regards to our superintendent search. You know, I know sometimes you get surveys and you wonder if you're ever really heard. And I just wanted to make sure that folks know that we received, you know, hundreds of pages of comments regarding that, and that I personally read it because it's important just to know. And I just wanted to again thank all the administrators, the teachers, the students, the PTA folks, the community members and partners who took the time to give us their feedback on that. And thank you so much. It has been heard.
Thank you very much, Ms. Autry. Anyone else? Dr. Hall?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Akbar. I can't believe I'm the first person who's going to say this, but I'm excited to have our kids back in school. I believe K through 2 and our special ed kids are back in school as of today. If they're not, then I'm embarrassed about saying that in public. I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I believe that they're back in school today. So I was very excited about that. Got some emails from parents indicating as such. And next week, you know, we have our 3 through 12 back. So these are exciting times. I know a lot of students have been anxious to get back to school. You know, this might be the only time in history where students are not looking forward to a snow day, because they've had a lot of those in the last year continuously. And then also I wanted to echo what Ms. Autry said. As usual, she steals my thunder on the best choice topics. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So again, I want to echo what she had to say as well. That feedback was integral. I know that I've gotten some other text messages and emails and phone calls from folks about the same topic, and just want to encourage folks to continue reaching out to us. You know, we are here. Our best ability is our availability, and our ability, you know, to listen and learn. And so thank you for that. So that's all I've got, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. So Ms. Autry and Dr. Hall took my points. I'll just add that the last surveys were done by parents. We appreciate our parents for giving us feedback. Had an overwhelming response from you. Definitely appreciate it. We also, I got an email actually a few hours ago asking if we were still accepting feedback. So I want to just say that we're not accepting any more feedback on our surveys, but we will have some open sessions during our superintendent search, provide more feedback and join in that process. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Go ahead and move forward. And we do have a request to address the board. And this request is from Pamela Hickson Stevenson, the director of Akron Summit County Public Library, in request for an endorsement of the renewal of the library's operating levy. So thank you very much, Pamela, for joining us. Wanted to just share with you, you have 3 minutes, and this doesn't seem like a topic where you would directly disparage anyone, but just want to let you know you can't do that. But we are happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akbar, and thank you, board members, for listening to my brief but important comments. Wanted to wish you a good evening and congratulations on kids returning to school, not only to the Board of Education, but to the hundreds and hundreds of staff members who've had roles and responsibilities and all of that. I do want to discuss with you an important question that will be posed to the community in the spring primary this year, and that is the question of renewing the Akron Summit County Public Library's current 1.9 mil operating levy. I am speaking to you this evening in order to request the Board of Education's endorsement for this levy renewal and also for permission to place levy signs on school property. We did this back in 2015 when we were on the ballot, and of course we've had a mutually beneficial relationship in that regard. As I mentioned, the levy is simply a renewal of our current 1.9 mil operating levy. That means there's not any additional fund being asked, and it's also not even a replacement, which would take advantage of the new property values. So it's basically the same dollars that the public approved in 2015. I also wanted to highlight just quickly, which I know you already know, there has been a longstanding partnership between public schools and public libraries in our country for decades and decades, but particularly here in Akron, we've had, I believe, a very fruitful and strong and supportive of the community type of partnership. And those partnerships and activities have come both informally and formally, and you will see that in the resolution because it details those relationships. So again, I'm here to ask for your endorsement, and I'm not sure, I apologize, this is my first Board of Education meeting. I don't know if it's appropriate to offer to answer questions, but I'm willing to if that's appropriate. If not, please feel free to contact me at the library and I'll be happy to discuss anything with you that you would like to know more about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hickson Stevenson. We don't accept questions at this time, but we definitely appreciate you. We will consider this resolution either at some point today or at a future meeting. I'm not sure if you need it done today or not. You do. One of the board members would need to ask this to be added to.
Second.
This. Okay. I believe I just saw that right. It went right past me. So I received a motion to add the levy resolution for the libraries to new business for today by Mr. Bravo, seconded by Mr. Alexander. Questions, comments, or concerns? Mr. Pendleton.
And Dr. Akbar, excuse me, just to clarify, this is adding it to new business for later this evening, correct?
Yes.
Yes. We do have a motion and a second. Mrs. Mansfield.
If I may, I made the motion. So normally we would approve this now. Is there any discussion later, or does anyone see a need for it to be under new business?
The resolution's listed there, so I thought that we were voting on it now too, but I'm unclear also.
I just want to know, when can I get a yard sign for my yard? That's all. That's all I want.
Right.
So.
Well, we typically don't do votes during community and school reflections, which is why I said new business. It would be a new business item for us. Any?
Okay. That's fine. We do, but that's
fine. Yeah. So yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
yes.
Aye.
Dr. Hall. Added under new business. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to recognition of winter sports, these coaches and teams, and we're going to turn it over to attendant.
Yes, and I'll hand it over to our district athletic director, Mr. Vassilotti.
Good evening, everyone. We greatly appreciate this time to recap and recognize our student athletes and teams from this winter. And it's a winter sports season that's not over yet, as we'll get to later. We still have a team competing at a high level. Thank you also for the opportunity to have winter sports this year, to Dr. James and the Board of Education. Thank you to our student athletes, coaches, and parents for being patient through this season with the protocols and doing your best to follow those, which of course has included rapid testing for our wrestling teams, coaches, and basketball teams and coaches. So we greatly appreciate that. One of the great life lessons of extracurriculars is handling adversity when things don't go well and you face challenges that maybe you'd rather not face. And our student athletes, coaches, our teams in general have done a great job of that through the winter. So I want to salute them for that. We'll start by recapping our team accomplishments. In girls bowling this year, our bowling championships were held at Stonehenge as usual. The girls' title was won by Firestone. Congratulations to the Falcons there. Boys bowling championship was won by Ellett, so congrats to the Ellett boys and coaches. In swimming, and we'll hear a lot about swimming tonight. I know we have some swimmers on this meeting joining us, but as a team, Firestone boys and girls captured their conference championship. And of course, that's not a city series title because they're the only swim team we have in APS. However, they compete in the Northeast Aquatic Conference with a number of large area schools and did a fantastic job in winning that conference. So congratulations to Firestone swimming girls and boys. Also, Firestone won our wrestling title this year. They went undefeated in dual meets in the city. I want to thank the folks at North and East for hosting our dual meets this year, something they weren't used to. Our league meets rather, because some of them involve 3 teams, but we appreciate their efforts to host those wrestling meets. In girls basketball, we had a regular season tie between Kenmore Garfield and Bookville, both undefeated throughout the regular season. They never got to face each other until the championship game, which was very exciting, an overtime game. Bookville pulled it out. It was extremely close, and just a great competitive game on both sides there. In boys basketball, Bookville won the regular season and the league championship game over North. And then just this past Saturday, 2 days ago, captured the district championship at home for Division II in their district. Very exciting. They defeated Norton, and they'll head to regionals. It's not close. It's southwest of Toledo in Elida, Ohio, if you've heard of that. But we looked it up. It's 199 miles from Bookville, so it's a bit of a drive, but they're excited. The charter buses have been scheduled through Candle Coach, and the team and the cheerleaders are eager to get to regionals. They play this Thursday at 5:30. Also want to salute Firestone for being selected as a site for hosting the boys basketball Division IV regionals. We were observed a number of times this winter by the OHSAA to see how our protocols were going. They were at Firestone several times and were impressed enough to award Firestone to host regional competition for boys basketball in Division IV. So just salute to Firestone, all the folks who work hard there, led by Athletic Director Brian Fuller. And we look forward to competition there tomorrow night, a doubleheader, and then the championship games Friday. Some individual accolades in the winter. I mentioned girls bowling earlier, and we have some of these student athletes I know on the call I'm going to recognize. So not sure how the technology up, if their faces could be brought up and they could smile and wave. They don't have to speak. But we do want to recognize some individual accomplishments here. In girls bowling, high game and high series for the championships at Stonehenge were brought home by Kristen Trefney from Firestone. So congratulations, Kristen. On the boys' side, a high game and high series was Keaden Marks from Buchtel. Also want to recognize in bowling, we had a 300 game this year, and it wasn't in the championships, but it was in the regular season. I think it was versus Talmadge, if I remember correctly, and that was Jacob McCoy from Ellett, bowled a perfect game, and obviously you can't get better than that. So congratulations, Jacob, for that 300 game. In wrestling, want to recognize Faith Perriman. Faith is a freshman girl wrestler at Kenmore Garfield who qualified for the state girls meet as a freshman. And what a great experience that was for her, and will only help her in the future. So awesome job, Faith. Also on the wrestling side, voted our City Wrestler of the Year by the coaches was senior Cole Urick from Ellett. Congrats, Cole. And then also we had a Most Inspirational Wrestler Award this year to an excellent leader, very good wrestler, senior Donnie Ware at North. In girls basketball, we had Players of the Year this year voted on by the coaches. And this year, and if you've seen this young lady play, she's exciting. She's all over the court, high energy, has led her team for a number of years now. But City Player of the Year from Kenmore Garfield, Ayana Locke, and she just did a fantastic job leading her team, like I said, into that championship game and through an undefeated city regular season. On the boys' side, you might recognize the name Chris Livingston. Chris is a junior from Buchtel. He was voted Player of the Year. Another outstanding season for Chris, one of the finest boys players we've had in the city in a while, and he's still going, as I said earlier, and good luck to Chris at regionals. We had a number of swimmers with individual accomplishments. We had many girls and boys qualify for the state meet down in Canton. So recognize state meet qualifiers on the girls' side: Tara Brillmeyer, Abby Komet, Emma Moore, Mia Nagel, and Molly Rogers. And then on the boys' side, state qualifiers were Mason Brady, Dominic Gasper, with a G, Daniel Green, Johnny Marshall, and Davis Pickett. And then at the state meet this year, the top 16 placers would earn points for their team. So I want to recognize individuals, and in some cases, groups of individuals who earn those points for Firestone. On the girls' side, Mia Nagel finished 5th place in the 100-yard breaststroke and 13th in the 200 freestyle. Molly Rogers finished 6th place in the 100 backstroke. Tara Brillmeyer, 11th place in the 200 individual medley. And then the team of Molly, Mia, Tara, and Emma finished collectively 5th place in the 200-yard medley. On the boys' side, you probably heard the name Johnny Marshall. I mentioned him earlier. Johnny finished runner-up in the 200 freestyle. And then as a sophomore, you can't get better than this, he won a state championship, 1st place in the 100 backstroke. So awesome job, Johnny. Keep it up. We're sure glad you're back for 2 more years. Again, congratulations to all our winter sports student athletes and teams. I want to thank the board and Dr. James for allowing us the time to recognize them tonight. And as I said, there's one team left, so go Griffs, Thursday, 5:30 in the regional semifinal, playing Toledo Central Catholic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to all of our student athletes and our coaches, and to our athletic director, Vasilati. Thank you for your leadership as well. You make us proud. You represent the district well. You make all of us proud and your schools proud. So thank you for representing. With that, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the previous meeting minutes on the special meeting on March 1st, 2021, as well as the regular meeting on February 22nd of 2021. It's been moved by Mr. Bravo. Is there a second? Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved by Mr. Bravo, seconded by Mrs. McKittrick. Any discussion? Mr. Pendleton, roll call, please.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Superintendent, we turn it over to you for personnel recommendations.
Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. McKittrick, seconded by Mr. Bravo. Any discussion on personnel recommendations? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Pendleton, roll call, please.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes, abstain from 11.1.
Thank you. Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have resolutions and motions on the consent agenda. Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 21.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Mrs. McKittrick and seconded by Mr. Bravo, and on the consent agenda. Hearing none, we'll do the vote by roll call. Mr. Pendleton.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar.
Yes. Thank you very much. Mr. Superintendent, we turn it back over to you for our business affairs recommendations.
Yes, Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23. I'd like to point out items 23.17 and 23.20. Both of those are additional safety supplies that are needed as we reopen. We're constantly looking for additional items to ensure the safety of our staff and students as we reopen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
President, sorry.
You're actually right. I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Autry, second. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. And any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I just wanted to add that 23.21, we wanted to just recognize the professional development of the board today for approval as well. discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Mr. Pendleton?
Ms. Autry, Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pendleton. Dr. James, Superintendent report.
Yes. So the one item that's in my report is in regards to spring sports. As we've done with fall and winter sports, there is a resolution for your consideration to actually allow the competition for spring sports. This one also adds sports for middle schools on a truncated schedule. But as we return our middle and high school students back next week, we have included the documents from our athletic committee. And I do certainly recommend that we allow those competitions for both high school and middle school to take place.
Okay, any discussion on that item from the board?
I just had one question about that, if I may.
Okay, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, my camera keeps blinking in and out. My apologies. So have there been any issues with respect to testing, or has that sort of unfolded in a way that's very sort of smooth and efficient?
I'll let Mrs. Folk answer that question, but there have been some issues not related to the actual, the process that we're using for testing, but the fact that there have been some positives in that. Mrs. Folk.
Good evening. We have had a very successful testing program for our contact sports, which were considered basketball and wrestling. We have had a few incidents of both students and staff being found positive. Therefore, we followed the protocols to file the positive person with Summit County and also did the direct contacts as a follow-up. Those teams involved were then sent into quarantine and could not practice nor participate until the quarantining was completed, which everybody did successfully, and the teams were able to return on time at the end of the quarantine session. So I would say basically we did a wonderful job. The students were very positively impacted by being able to be tested. And I think it was a good understanding of how the testing runs out. And I do commend Mr. Vassilotti, because that testing schedule got to be very creative as we moved our testers from location to location multiple times on one day, depending on which sport was playing within the time frame that we needed to. So I can't tell you that it wasn't with its ups and downs, but we got through it, and we are very successfully going into postseason and able to test our current basketball team that will be playing at the higher level as well as they go forward.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that, Ms. Fold.
Thank you very much, Ms. Folk. I know we did receive some emails about some people being angry from having the quarantine, but I think that it was the board's will that happened. I think we followed protocol, so we know at least it's working, because we did hear from some angry parents. So we appreciate them reaching out to us. We also appreciate you for following the protocol.
An update is the spring sports that you are considering approving tonight to move forward are considered non-contact sports, so the testing will not need to take place for the sports during the spring.
Right. So as a part of the superintendent's report, there is a resolution attached there to return to sports play for spring sports. I don't know why I said it that way, but to return of spring sports. And so we will either accept further discussion or a motion to move forward with that.
So moved.
Second.
So it's been
I think
Okay,
Ms.
it's been-
Autry had her hand up.
okay. I'm sorry, Miss Autry.
Yeah, just for a clarification too, and for the public who's listening, for the middle school sports, so that will be intra-city, or will we be playing outside schools?
I think those are all within the city for middle school.
Yeah, that's correct, Mrs. Autry. It's all within the city. Our middle schools would just play one another, and no teams outside of the city during this 3-week season coming up.
Thank you.
I have another question too. So with track, with that being an outside sport, is that going to be, I guess, more open for folks to come and view those competitions, or will it still be limited to X amount of tickets per athlete?
Mrs. Autry, I can address that. There is a new order from the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio High School Association. They have increased the amount of spectators from 15% to 25% of the actual seating inside, and to 30% for actual seating in outside venues. So you will see some additional seating allowed, but it will still not be the capacity of the total seats in either venue.
Thank you very much, Ms. Folk. Any other questions or comments? Discussion? Okay, so we'll accept the motion if there is one at this time.
So moved.
It's been by Mr. Bravo.
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Autry. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll do the vote on the return to spring sports by vote of roll call. Mr. Pemberton.
Mr. Bravo?
Sorry, didn't think I was first. Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Hall?
Sorry, aye. That was funny.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, so in line with Ms. Perriman, we are aware of prom and graduation, so we're working through those with the principals in terms of venues and, just making sure that we can move forward and that is safe. So I got that message. Also, I along with Mayor Horrigan, visited a couple of our sites this morning. I'm very happy to report there were a lot of smiling faces, kids very excited to be back, and a lot of smiling faces from staff. We visited Helen Arnold, Resnick, and also Harris Jackson. And actually at Harris Jackson, lunch was in progress. And so we're using not only the cafetorium, but the auditorium as well. Because they have 5 lunch periods of 100 kids each. And so they were all properly spaced. And from what we saw, everything was working like clockwork. And then also I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Folk to talk about Metro, because that issue had come up earlier in our plans for safety.
Thank you, Dr. James. In line to getting ready for school, APS did reach out to Metro, because there are some different regulations, as alluded to in the statements made earlier by our wonderful student board member. Yes, Metro buses are not able to accommodate the same number of students, and please realize that they go under federal mandates. So therefore, I can tell you that a 45-foot bus can only have 25 people on it at once, and a 30-foot to 35-foot bus can only have 20. That was a reality and an understanding from the Department of Transportation. Our student services team sat down with them to find out exactly what routes we would have impacted. We do not have chasers available for some of our heavier used schools, but they will be setting extra buses on those routes with the times that we gave them, but our students will be reporting. We have advised all of our schools of the routes that serve their individual schools and made some adjustments to the routes that they actually have running on the hour, so that our staff will be housed at the transit center to make sure our students safely travel in and out of the Metro Transit Center as they travel back and forth. And we expect that all of our students should be pretty much out of the Metro Transit Center by 4:30. So we are actively working with Metro along with Summit County Health, as those adjustments may change with the guidelines and the lifting of some of the sanctions that are currently in line for COVID reality. But we have to do it piece by piece, as they are under the federal regulations of transport, not the Ohio Department of Ed for student transport. Thank you.
And that was all I had, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none. President's report. So there's a few items for the president's report that I want to go over, and some of it is a discussion with the board. And to just say that one of the things that we have coming up is our meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m. to discuss superintendent candidates and to review those. So that will happen on Thursday at 6 p.m. To date, I think that everyone's good with that, so I haven't heard anything questioning that. We'll have Mr. Horton and his team join us again for that meeting. The return for board meetings is on the agenda today. We'll discuss that in new business. Wanted to just share that, and we'll in that discussion, which I was necessarily something we talked about before, was that we would be required to have limited in-person public invitations, or how do I say that? Public participation, I should say that, attending our meetings in person. So we would actually have to have that available for those who want to desire to come join us. We'll still obviously follow all of the current APS policies on physical distancing, as well as the board being spaced out. So just wanted to add that level of context, which was something I found out on Friday, prior to since we had that discussion at our last meeting before the resolution comes before you. So we'll talk about that more in new business. Also, did receive a request. We have a meeting tentatively or slated for March 23rd. And I know we had discussed starting earlier, but it looks like you have to start at 5 now. Is that a challenge for anyone? We would try to start between 2 and 3 on the 23rd, but now it looks like we have to start at 5.
I'm looking now, Dr. Akbar.
This was the 23rd, right?
Yes, the 23rd.
Just checking.
Request from board member to start later due to a meeting work conflict, and I just wanted to make sure that was fine before we changed it on the schedules.
So we said 5 o'clock on the 23rd. Roger that. Yep, that works for me.
I can make it. I'll make it work. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for being flexible and working with us on that. So thank you very much. The next item is, it looks like everyone, but maybe one person And we couldn't find a time that everyone was able to make it. So we have all but one person possibly able to make the joint meeting with the board and city council, which is slated for April 1st. And that is not an April Fool's joke. And so we are slated to meet at 5:30 that day with city council. We have discussed, Dr. Hall and I have discussed with President Margot Somerville some agenda items. One of them being broadband access, and maybe it's some joint process or resolution that we can all work on with the city and the school district. And so that's one thing that's on the agenda that we know we'll talk about. Else that you want to discuss, get with me soon. I'll be, Dr. Hall and I will be meeting with city council leadership first meeting to finalize the agenda and send that out. At present, it'll be an hour and a half max meeting. So it won't be an agenda where there will be 80 things on there. So just to know that we're not going to elephant in one sitting, have 2 or 3 discussion items, and have another meeting potentially in the summer as well with the city council. So I see Mrs. McKittrick.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'm sorry, could you tell me what time again on the 1st?
5:30, which Ruth I think already put on everyone's calendars.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then just 2 other items. And so one is that we were supposed to do Mr. Pendleton's evaluation today. We are going to push that back to March 22nd. And so just wanted to let everyone know, did have that conversation with Mr. Pendleton, and we're going to just push that back meeting. And the last item to discuss is just to let everyone know that we have had some discussions and some questions from the board. And so we're referring to Finance Committee, just a review of the administrative salary structure. And then we'll have a vote and discussion at our next meeting on March 22nd about that. So just wanted to let everyone know about that. And I think that's all that I have. Anything. And so any questions about anything that I thank you very much, everyone. We're going to move to Treasurer's Report with Mr. Pendleton.
Thank you, Dr. Akbar. Quick report tonight. Before I get into my comments, as a reminder, I'll be reaching out for a finance committee next week in reference to what Dr. Akbar just talked about, administrative salary structure, and as well as our finance strategic plan. Quick comments regarding House Bill 126. We are presenting written opponent testimony to House Bill 126. Thanks to Dr. James and the Ohio 8 Coalition this weekend for working on this opponent testimony. Very quickly, this has come back in this form, House Bill 126. It was prior in December 2020 as House Bill 75, and all the way back to December of 2018, it was House Bill 343, all of which we have opposed and have partnered with compromises along the way. The background of this is Representative Marin files a process that is overly burdensome on school boards and how it evaluates property in the board of revision process. And as Ms. Autry talked about, I believe in our previous board meeting about the advocacy page in House Bill 920, it is in direct conflict of House Bill 920, and it really reduces the board's ability to collect all taxes in a fair and equitable manner. So if this were to go through, And again, this is the third or fourth attempt at this bill. We believe that we will be successful this time. It would unduly burden some taxpayers versus others. We can talk about this more in Finance Committee in detail. I'll forward you our opponent testimony. But again, special thanks to Dr. James and the Ohio 8 Coalition for wrapping around us in this opponent testimony. It's much more powerful when they're hearing from the 8 urbans than just a single individual. So that concludes my report tonight. And back to you, Dr. Akbar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pendleton. Anybody else has any questions for the Treasurer of the Year? All right.
That's awesome, by the way.
I'm just stating facts here. All right. So it looks like there's no questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Pendleton. We're going to move to our committee report.
Dr. Akbar,
Muted.
you muted.
You muted.
Was I muted that whole time? I couldn't have been.
No, it was like right before your sentence.
Okay, I'm like, I swear I heard laughters at the host Treasurer of the Year thing. Okay, so I don't know how that happened. But we're at committee reports, and we'll move to legal contracts and board policy. We'll go to Mr. Alexander.
No report at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is finance and capital management, Mr. Bravo.
No report at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Instructional policy and student achievement, Mrs. Mansfield.
I'll start if that's okay.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that's fine.
So really quickly, just to refresh everybody's memories, the Akron Public Schools received the Hewlett Foundation and Chan Zuckerberg Initiative Foundation grants, and each of those is $1.5 million. And the Chan Zuckerberg grant funds our elementary, college, and career academy strategies and our DEI work. And as far as any administrative costs or indirect costs for the handling of each of those grants, just to make sure everybody knows that no monies come out of those grants to support any administrative costs. So that money goes directly to the projects that it's supposed to be funding. That's all for me.
Okay, Mrs. Mansfield, do you have anything else?
I'm going to let Miss Autry introduce Dr. McWilliams-Woods' topic, I believe, that came up in scrimmage today.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Mansfield. So with the return of in-person education, one of the questions that I've been fielding was surrounding testing and how that's going to work. So it was mentioned this morning, House Bill 67 specifically, and I will allow Dr. McWilliams-Woods to explain a little bit further what it means and where we're at.
Thank you, Mrs. Autry and my Instructional Policy Committee. Thank you very much. So I wanted to just highlight House Bill 67 that does address testing in the state of Ohio. This has not passed the Senate yet. It's supposed to be in committee with the Senate tomorrow, with hopefully bringing it to the full Senate further this week. We're hoping the timeline works out that well because state testing is coming up very quickly. So I wanted to just highlight a couple things that if this does go through, will impact our testing, and I'll show you what that looks like on our schedule. The good news is that there is some flexibility and relief, particularly on the graduation requirements, but not quite as much relief as we were hoping for with the state tests itself and the administration of state tests. What has happened, and when we talk about state tests, I think it's really important, and I mentioned this at scrimmage this morning, that people don't realize when we say state tests, most of our state tests are actually required by the U.S. Department of Education. And that's how if we're going to take federal school improvement funding, which every district does in the state of Ohio, then you also have to do the testing that's required to draw down those funds. And the state sets those provisions up for us, but it's actually required from the U.S. Department of Education. The Biden administration just put out guidance that they are not going to waive their U.S. Department of Ed required testing, but they will waive if the states apply for this, which we will do once this House Bill 67 passes. But they will waive the consequences of state testing for our report cards, for school improvement status, and the implications that can come from that. So knowing that is coming from the U.S. Department of Ed, what the state has done is put together this House Bill 67, our state legislators, to direct the state on what to ask the U.S. Department of Ed for in their waiver. So the first thing here is mandating the spring testing window, that it will extend the state testing window. So we still have to give the tests, but they're going to give us an additional week beyond the extension they had already given us about a month ago. They're going to extend it now through this May 7th and May 21st for math, science, and social studies. And we do all of our testing online since we've been one-to-one for 5 years now. We do all of our testing online. The second thing just to highlight is this: it requires the Department of Ed to make sure that we get the test results back in a timely manner to make decisions about our third grade students because of the third grade guarantee and wanting to make sure that we get summer intervention for students. The third grade guarantee had already, for this year, they had said that we're not going to be retaining students based on the third grade tests. So that part in the Ohio state law was already waived, which is good, but this directs us just to make sure that the assessment results come back in time for summer intervention for third grade. Then for graduation requirements, there's a few very important things that are very positive. The first thing is that it permits school districts to grant that for any student, we can grant a diploma if a student is considered and deemed on track to graduate. For those of you who remember last year, we had this same provision that if students are demonstrating that they have been on track to graduate, then if this bill passes, we can look at all of their credits, their assessments that they've taken, and if we deem that they're on track to graduate, then we can list them and issue them a diploma. The second thing that is really important is that we can actually also use, hang on, I must have missed it here. Oh, it's over here because it was already in the bill, that we can also use the final course grade in a course to go towards instead of or in lieu of a test score. So this also was a provision that they did last spring that they're just carrying over and applying. So instead of having to hit a specific mark on a test score, you can use a grade in the course, and then that turns into an equivalency of a test score, and you can use that for graduation. These are both very, very important, critical flexibility items if this bill passes through the Senate, and then get signed by the governor, that we'll be able to use for graduation purposes. Now, let me just show you to Mrs. Autry's question then about what kind of impact does that have on us going into the spring. So this is a list of all of the assessments coming into the spring for our students. Now, this far right column lists the grades, but when you look at the state assessments that are all required here, this is our English language proficiency, the ACT, here's all the state tests that I was just mentioning, and then we have gifted assessments and career ed assessments that are required. Those are still, no matter what happens with House Bill 67, these assessments are still going to be required, and they're required for both in-person students and remote students. So we will have to figure a way to have our remote students come in for the assessments to make sure that they take those. Now, the flexibility that they provided for those high school exams, where you can use a course grade for the students instead of an exam, that will help, that students will have to come in and retake lots of exams. So that will certainly give us some relief, but we still have to give the suite of assessments. Mrs. Autry, did that cover all the topics?
I think so.
Yeah, so good news for some flexibility for graduation and extension and timeline. It's too bad that we didn't, from the U.S. Department of Ed, get a full waiver of assessments, just because, especially for us coming back to school now, I wish we didn't have to. I would want to prioritize every single second on direct instruction with students versus stopping and taking assessments, but it will, in the big scope of things, it will help us look and see where our students are for planning for next year. But I just hate to take that time right now when we're just coming back to school.
Good, thank you very much. Any questions or discussion for what was presented? Okay, hearing none, I'll just say thank you, Dr. McWilliams-Woods, for providing that. I know that you know, with the pandemic and everything, people have been wondering about whether or not there would be some flexibility with graduation, as well as the end of the term test. So I think this does help provide some information on the path forward in that way. It looks like Mrs. McKittrick may have a question for you, though. Mrs. McKittrick?
Nope, sorry, my hand's up earlier. Sorry.
You literally just popped up in the middle of my screen. So I was like, oh, she must have a question. Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. McWilliams-Woods, and the committee, Instructional Policy Committee. So next we'll have the Equity Committee. Dr. Hall.
Sure, thanks, Mr. President. So we met recently as well and had a, well, first we welcomed a new member to the committee, Ms. Hughes, the campus principal from Bookdale CLC, and she's a fantastic addition, and right away was a fantastic community contributing member of our committee. We had a very robust conversation around our HR practices, specifically our hiring practices. And so Ms. McVeigh was gracious enough to come and provide a presentation where we had a chance to kind of talk about sort of, you know, background and have discussion around sort of the history of our hiring. We had a chance to talk about kind of current state, what were some of the opportunities from an equity standpoint. It was a very open and honest discussion. You know, we talked about things such as how could we better our pre-screening of applicants, and how could we better examine the tools that we used to assess current applicants as well. And so it was very, very open, honest discussion. And want to thank Ms. McVeigh for her contributions in leading and really leading that. There were a number of follow-up items that we will make every effort to get Ms. McVeigh back in front of the committee to present on here the next probably month or two. And then secondarily, we also in that meeting began that transition to Ms. Carla Chapman, who was currently our director of community relations and DEI. And so she'll begin to facilitate and coordinate that meeting as we move forward, much the same as Mr. Perriman does, or Dr. McWilliams-Woods does for IMP and for Finance Committee. And so looking forward to her taking a more active role in leading that committee as we move forward as well. And then also we extended an invite recently to Ms. Shipe from the AEA as well. So hopefully she and/or her delegee will be able to join us moving forward. So that's a very concise recap of our meeting. Happy to take any questions or hear any comments or concerns that anybody may have.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. Think Dr. Hall did a good job in pulling Mrs. Chapman in to lead that, because she has been doing a lot of the work already under equity, and I think it was a perfect move to have her lead this and guide us, and then we have robust discussion and move forward. I think it's going to be very good. So thank you.
Yeah, I should add to that as well. Ms. Chapman is also going to take the lead on really setting the schedule as we move forward with getting because various departments all have equity initiatives that they are working on, and so Ms. Chapman will be taking the lead to work with those departments offline, and then to help coordinate and schedule them to come before the equity committee as we move throughout the year. So there's a lot of work to be done. This will be very fast paced, and we have a very robust agenda every month coming forward. So if you're able to tune in to that committee, please do, because there's a lot going on, and we welcome this group's collective feedback. So thank you again. And thank you, Mr. Alexander.
Questions or discussion for the equity committee? None. The communication ad hoc committee, Ms. Autry.
There's no report at this time, but we are likely having a meeting at the end of the month. We're just waiting to get some confirmations back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our committee reports. There's no unfinished business. We do have 2 items for new business, one being the return to in-person school, and the other being the library's levy. And so we'll move to the return to in-person board meetings. I said school at first, my apologies, but it return to in-person board meetings. Any discussion on this topic? You can raise your hand or put your name in the chat.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about is just logistically, you mentioned about we would have to allow a certain number of public members of the public to attend. I guess it's balancing that out. Will we still be having the capability for people to address the board virtually still? Will we be doing both? And again, I'm thinking about the camera, the position of it, how it's looking during the meetings. Can we hear, if someone's at home versus someone in person, going back and forth between all of that? So, I know we have the awesome Ryan Rittenhouse, but I'm just wondering about that. How much time would we need to, I guess, make sure that all looks okay and we can hear okay if should we go back in person?
So I'll see if Dr. James has anything else to add after I share. So I did share with Mark Williamson that I did not think that there would be any additional considerations based off the way we are currently doing it, because our desired recommendation would be that they still present, and in fact that each and every one of us would still be have our computers in front of us and still presenting the computer. So it will be live streamed that way. One of the things that we talked about that we didn't necessarily want was having there be a stream from the room, just kind of broadly, without everything happening in the room. And so it'll be better if we all had our computers in front of us, unmuted when it was time for us to speak, and do it that way. So that was kind of the thought process behind it. And so if you're asking to address the board, then you would do it on Teams as well. And so the only thing we will probably have to do is a space for community members to, if there's a computer or something we have where they can come and feedback or their comments. So that might be, when you just said that, that might be one thing that I can think of that we might need to do. Other discussions or considerations that have been thought about, Dr. James?
I think the primary method is exactly what you described, is everyone still using their, Chromebooks or devices to and interact with the meeting. We'll look at some other options, with the cameras in some other rooms where we might have to extend if we get in-person visitors. But I'll have a little bit more on that a little later in the week, I believe.
Yes, and I know we talked about security for the building and all of that as well. And I don't know if yet, but I know that's something else that we talked about as well.
Right, a lot of that'll be dependent if we're going to be in that room, and we have, we'll have to spread out. So it'll change the configuration a little bit, but security for that particular room, I don't think will have to change as much, but we will have to provide for security if we have to go to another room for overflow. So that is one consideration that we'll have to take.
Thank you very much. I see Mrs. McKittrick, then Mrs. Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, my hand was up for real this time. I want to thank whoever wrote the resolution for allowing the flexibility for those of us who might not yet be comfortable returning to in-person, still having the flexibility to be remote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKittrick. That came directly from our discussions. And so worked with Brian and Diana Feidel to come up with the resolution based upon the discussions that we had at the last meeting. So you can thank yourselves and Diana and Ryan for the wordsmithing. But the ideas all came from what you all said. So Mrs. Mansfield, sorry.
I think my questions have kind of been answered. I just had questions about the room and if we were going to be in that room or if we looked at other spaces that might give us a chance to spread out just a little bit more. And then it's not such a big deal if someone shows up. The other great thing about board meetings, especially as we get toward the end of the year, is the recognition of students. And tonight was lovely and it's a great way to do it. And it's a great pandemic compromise, right? But the safer and if there are ways that we can move toward doing things in person, whether that be, you know, I know some of the schools now, we do our meetings a little bit different, but I know that some schools have done their meetings in auditoriums so that there's a great air exchange in auditoriums. I know that creates a huge issue for the folks that do tech, and probably Ryan Rittenhouse is given the shaking my head thing on wishing I would not ask that, but just trying to throw out some other ideas for ways that we can do some of those things as safely as possible for keeping students safe, keeping staff safe, and yet incorporating those things when we can do it safely. Just hoping we can get back to that as we move on, just as our students and our staff are.
Thank you very much. I know you didn't address that to any one person, but I don't know if Ryan, you had any thoughts on that. I'm sorry, Mr. Pendleton. No, okay. That might be something. Yeah, I saw it at the end. I was like, okay, yeah. That might be something we want to consider, but that's not something we've talked about thus far.
And just thoughts right now, just throwing some things out there right now. And again, some of this may not be till summer or fall, but as we're moving forward, those are some things that I know that we miss, right? Because we are separated from each other, and we're still going to have to be spread out, and nothing's going to be the same, but just thinking about how, other ways we can do it. And I know there is no box anymore. So we're thinking outside of something, but we threw the box out a long time ago. So we're not thinking inside any boxes.
And just to add some additional comments there, we know that this legislation allows us to operate in virtual or in-person or blended environment, much like our students, until the end of until July 1st. So there's some discussions in Columbus about how to modify this. And I've given my thoughts, haven't participated in any testimony, but I've given my thoughts that much like our students, there's been some real growth in these areas for boards of education. And I think the flexibility that we've had in our committee meetings and the efficiency out of this is pretty fantastic. So we'll continue to advocate for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's Miss Autry. Yes, Miss Autry. And is there anyone after that can line up in the chat?
No, I'm sorry. I don't.
Okay, Mr. Alexander, then Dr. Hall.
Yeah, I know we mentioned this, but what is the time frame that we're looking to come back if we come back in person? I can't remember the date.
It's March 22nd, so it will be our very next meeting. I believe I said that correctly. Did I get that right, Mr. Pendleton?
Yes.
It almost I thought I got it wrong for 5 seconds. So like we start going remote on March 23rd, or then I was like, well, or was that 22nd? And then we're going back 23rd this year. All these dates, but yeah, almost a year later. Literally. Okay, Dr. Hall.
Yes, thanks, Mr. President. Apologies if this has already been addressed. But I think we mentioned that we would have security there per normal. But my question was going to be if we were to have individuals who show up and do not want to wear a mask, for the in-person session, be authorized to remove said individuals. Because again, I'm just, I worked the polls on election day, and we had some folks that came in and refused to wear a mask, and it just kind of got to be ridiculous. And so I just want to make sure that we're prepared in case we have folks who show up and want to visit similar behavior upon us at our board meetings.
So yeah, I think that's something I'll work with Dan Rambler on and Diana Feidel. I mean, as long it's my understanding or my belief that as long as we have, you know, it posted that you have to wear masks to come into the building, I think legally we should be okay. But again, I'll double check with Mr. Rambler because we do have APD officers on at our building for that, along with our own security. And so I'll do a quick check on that one.
Roger that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, entertain a motion if there is one.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Bravo, seconded by Mrs. McKittrick.
That was me, but that's okay.
So sorry, I saw Mrs. McKittrick picture pop up in my face.
We said it at the same time, so I apologize.
Okay, no problem. Sorry, it's been moved by Mr. Bravo and seconded by Mrs. Mansfield. Is there any discussion further on this motion?
I do have one additional question, and I'm sorry if it was answered. I'm just trying to visualize this. I guess I'm thinking about executive session. So I guess it's going to be a matter of, I mean, are we going to stay in whatever said room, or are we going to move to another room? I mean, we'll have to, I guess, clear out the public if we stay. I guess the time that's going to be involved with that, taking that into account for the folks that might be in person. And if this was answered already, I apologize. I'm just trying to visualize that piece of our meetings, the executive session.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Autry. We haven't had that specific conversation with anyone yet. So it's a great point. Mr. Pendleton, area.
Well, Superintendent James and I talked a little bit about this. We can relocate to a separate room on the second floor, obviously limit the disruption for any public that are in attendance. And our only requirements per the board policy would be to connect to those board members not present at that point in time. So we could, the conference room on the fifth floor might be a little bit too tight, but we would set up a room on the second floor that would have fit our needs there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pendleton. Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a vote by roll call. Mr. Pendleton, please.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yeah.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so look forward to seeing some of you in person at our next meeting on March 22nd. And we'll move to the next item, which is the resolution to support the library levy, which was presented to us by Ms. Pamela Hickson Stevenson, doing requests for to address the board. And so we will entertain a motion to support that resolution.
So moved.
So moved.
There is one. Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Autry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Bravo. Any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, we'll vote by, Ms. Autry.
I'm sorry, it's not really a question. I just want to thank the public library for all that they do for our students. You know, our students utilize it so much. They come there after school. And we have such wonderful librarians and staff. And I just wanted to thank them for their continued support for Akron Public Schools.
Mr. Autry, well said. Mr. Alexander?
No, I don't have anything.
Sorry, you unmuted, so I just wanted to make sure. All right, so any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a vote by roll call. Mr. Pendleton?
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick, Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other new business to come before the board today? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go into, there is a need to recess into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 for the purposes of considering the employment of a public employee or official of the school district and Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3 to conference with the board legal counsel concerning disputes involving the school district that are subject of pending or imminent court action.
So
There's a motion. It's been moved by Mr. Bravo. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Alexander. All those in favor? I'm sorry. I'm feeling like I'm in another meeting. Mr. Pendleton, roll call, please.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
thank you. 7:06. Okay.
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We will recess into executive session, and I do not think there will be a need for action when we return. So for joining us today, we will return to adjourn executive sessions. So board members, if you can log out fully of this meeting and log into the executive session now. House. Thank you very much, by the way. Okay, thank you very much, and welcome back to the regular scheduled meeting. Thank you. Welcome back to the regular scheduled meeting of the Akron Board of Education on 8 March 2021. Turn from executive session, and there's no further actions to come before the board today. We will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Bravo, seconded by Mr. Alexander. Thank you very much, everyone. We will see the board members on Thursday. And thank you very much for a great meeting.
Everybody have a good evening.
Bye. Members on Thursday. And thank you very much for a great meeting.
Everybody have a good evening.